Hello and welcome to what I am calling the Deep Dive a la carte. I have no idea what order I will post any or all of these videos as I go around the trailer and look at various aspects of the build, various cabinets like the tool cubby or the drawer bank. I think that's drawer bank 2, and that little skinny one down at the end is drawer bank 1. The large tool garage, drawer bank 3. All of these codes kind of coming from Ron Paulk's SMART trailer plans, which this is based off of, but modified because, of course, his trailer is much larger than mine. So one unique aspect to my trailer specifically is this right-hand side here where I have the vertical tool garage and Ron has the horizontal tool garage, which is much larger due to the width of his trailer, etc. So with that, because I had to fit my vertical tool garage because of my tools and getting them actually out of the trailer, I ended up with this area right here in between that taller drawer bank called drawer bank 3 and then, of course, the tool garage itself. In my first iteration of this trailer, I simply had an open cavity there. It was actually just a cabinet with no shelves or anything, and it bottomed out right there. And all of these Milwaukee screw bins, I'll call them that. I don't know actually what they're called, but organizers, if you will. But all of these screw bins I simply had stacked from the bottom up, and there were no shelves or anything, so it was just an open cavity, and they were all stacked, and of course they were all locked into place because they have that locking mechanism like many packouts do. These screw bins have a locking mechanism as well. So they were all locked together, and they never fell out. They rode just fine. But of course, with having 5, I now have 6, but I had 5 at the time, having 5 of these bins, I thought, well, you know, the top bin is what I will have my common use, and they were pretty much drywall screws. And then it went all the way down, pretty much almost organized as it is now, to the tap cons, which are at the bottom here. And inevitably, because I thought, well, how often do I use tap cons? They can stay down at the bottom, and I'll just be, just take them apart as I need to. And of course, I needed tap cons way more than I ever thought. And so I was consistently taking all of these apart, setting them off to the side wherever I could fit them, getting into the bottom one, and then having to put them all back. And it was just, I realized, obviously, not very efficient. So when I was able to come back and kind of reorganize and rebuild the left-hand or the right-hand side here from the tool garage on out with only the level garage down here being the original cabinet that I kept, that was on that side originally, I kept that cabinet. Everything else was rebuilt. So when I redesigned this, I simply took advantage of basically drawers, because all of these actually slide out, so they're really drawers, but they have no front, they have no sides, and they have no back. They simply have this retaining lip, which is just a 3/4 by 3/4 piece of plywood, which is used extensively around this trailer, simply like up here to hold tools in so that tool can't shift out. It's used down there. It is used up on top. That's kind of where that label for electrical fish stick is. So I have these retainers all over the place to keep things in place while I travel. And that is a Ron Paulk or somebody else design. I did not figure that out for myself. All of these drawers, of course, do take advantage of Ron Paulk's passive system for drawers, where you have this routed out notch, which, when slides back, it slides over a piece of hardwood, and then it falls behind that hardwood. Because that hardwood is glued in place, the drawer itself will not pull out on its own unless you lift it up over, and then you're free to use your drawer. So I designed these then as basically just drawers or moving shelves, if you will, and then I retained my organization and my order of these bins, except for the fact that the finish nails, that's relatively new. I had enough finish nails that were in jars, I think, to where it justified having the 6. Unfortunately, I had the space for it. Okay, so this cabinet here. This cabinet is actually a cabinet construction, so you see that the tool garage and this screw bin cabinet they're completely separate. This is simply a retainer. This cabinet comes all the way down to here where it bottoms out at the top of the level garage, and what I have is a large drawer in that system as well. So that's the construction of it. And the dimensions, so the height of this thing all the way down to the base, so out to out, if you will, is 37 1/4 inches, and it is 17 wide from the inside of that cabinet to the inside of that cabinet, so it's 17 wide, and it's 23 1/4 inches deep, which is exactly the depth of my large tool garage. Just taking a look at the deep dive, I'll take a look at all of these screw bins really quickly with you. So if you don't want to look at organized screws, you can probably stop here in just a moment. But I will say something about this cubby up here. I ended up with this empty cavity up here. And this is literally the top of this cabinet. And this is simply just a free-floating ceiling for this cubby, if you will. And it's supported by these strips of 1/2-inch plywood there and there, because my tool garage has its own ceiling. My drawer bank number 3 has its own ceiling, and this was just a cavity. So this cavity I would keep, boxes or whatever in originally. And when I bought this bin, this screw bin for finish nails, then my pecs had to move up here, and at that point I had enough pecs to where I actually bought a second Craftsman organizer, and now I have 1/2-inch and 3/4 pecs up there as well. And while I'm in this bin, by the way, is approximately 12 inches tall. It's still going to be the 17 wide and the 23 1/4 deep. I do have my pecs tools, so that's an extra cinch wrench, and it's the same thing as I have right down there, all Apollo brand, and then I have my PEX cutters right there. I use the cinch. I don't do enough PEX to justify buying those $1,000 crimpers, whether they're the manual crimpers or the power crimpers. I just don't do enough of it, and I've talked with plumbers who are in the business full time, and they are okay with the cinch, but they do enough business to where, of course, they have the fancier equipment, but they're okay with the cinch, and so if they're okay with it, I'm okay with it. And all of my work is inspected by code, so, it is what it is. Okay, now, if you don't want to look at screw organization, you're probably done. Have a good afternoon. If you want to check these bins out with me, follow along. Finish nails. How I use these, I would pull the shelf out, and to get access, I would simply just lift that up, set it on the ledge just a little bit, because I get to leave a lot of my shelf inside in these dados. I get full access to my screw bin. It's fully supported. The shelf's not going to fall out. And these shelves, if something actually broke, these shelves are very easy to create and replace. Okay, how am I organizing? Well, it's not a big deal. These things just lend themselves to doing exactly what I have done with them. So I simply have just all things finish nails, from brights to galvanized. All I need to do is just latch one. I don't really need to latch the other because, of course, this lid really can't come out. When I set this back, it's simply just easy enough to pull back in. Now down to, of course, the very first bin that I had, which is drywall screws. This being probably one of the heaviest. The nails are probably the other heavy screw bin or organizer. What I can do is I can set that right there, and even though it's cantilevered and I know it's bending that shelf quite a bit, it's okay. It's not going to go anywhere. And like I said, if that shelf breaks, I can replace that fairly easily. So with drywall screws, like everybody else can organize, 3s, I use a lot of 1 5/8, so they occupy the big bin. Some very large, probably 4s or 3 1/2s. 2 1/2s, 2s, just some randoms, empty, so I can just take a few of the 1 5/8, throw them in there, and then this can go with me, and I don't necessarily have to take that. Otherwise, 1 1/4, 1 inch, and then some of these things called spacks, and I have 1 1/2 and 1 1/4 there as well, all interior. Now, I do have room in the back of this shelf, even with the bin in there, to where I can take advantage of, if I have an extra small box of nails or screws, they can go back there and serve as kind of like a little deep storage, if you will. I am very lacking in the ability to have a lot of inventory in this trailer, and so I take advantage of what space that I have. Alright, so this would be all things exterior screw, and that's probably just as heavy as the drywall screws up there. Of course, just all things exterior, fairly, the same organization with various sizes. I have Star Drive, and I have Phillips, and some stainless. Here again, a little bit of deep storage in the back. When I build this again for my next trailer, which will be a little bit wider because this is only 6 feet wide. I'll have a 7-foot wide trailer, hopefully 8, but I have no idea if I can get that. That if I do, this will be actually, I'm going to do this exact same drawer system again for these exact same cubbies, maybe even another bin, but I will have that like 30 inches deep, and so I will have a lot of deep storage behind these bins, and that is my plan. All things here would be just, looks like wood screws, sheet metal screws, a lot of sheet metal screws, and trim screws. So I have a variety of trim screws here, and even white aluminum. Not necessarily all things nails, but lots of nails in here. So you have your 16 commons, you have your, look like 10 commons, 12 commons, a couple of sizes of roofing nails, some galvanized 16s, I believe. Lastly, is the one I thought I would never get into, hardly at all, and turns out I get into it way more than I thought. So here are just my tap cons, a lot of variety sizes of tap cons. I would like to have a dedicated bin of only tap cons and be able to organize this better. So I would like to have an additional, like a 7th screw bin at some point when I do another trailer. And then I have gutter screws colored there, and then silver there for doing either duct work or eaves troughs. All right, well, there you have it. Let me set this back in here. That one's actually pretty light. And nothing falls out, so I'm very, very blessed with that, that it's a really good system, a passive system, but a great system nonetheless. So that's my screw bin. And even though that is not on the Ron Paulk plans, I really enjoy that particular cabinet. It keeps me with literally, again, a hardware store. I have a lot of hardware in here. And I'm very happy with the system. This system will go into my next trailer. It will grow probably one more shelf up, as far as one more movable shelf for an additional bin, and it will be a little bit deeper to give me that deep storage behind each one of these. Thank you very much, everybody. Talk to you later.